Good afternoon everyone. Today I am going to talk about coagulation of blood. When I say coagulation, which cell should come into your mind? Platelet should come into your mind. Coagulation, okay? Okay. So, what is coagulation exactly? Coagulation means usually the blood which is in fluid state, in liquid form, will get converted into a solid state as a clot. Why should it get converted to a clot? Because to prevent bleeding, further bleeding. Unless it becomes a clot, it will go on bleeding. Whenever there is some cut on our body, platelets will, blood will keep flowing unless there is some clot, and then only it will stop bleeding. So it has to form a clot to prevent further bleeding. So for this, lot of chemical reactions will take place. How can a blood form a clot? So for it, lot of reactions will take place. These chemical reactions are called cascade reactions. Though it is not on the slide, these chemical reactions are called cascade reactions. C-A-S-C-A-D-E, cascade reactions. So these cascade reactions are nothing but chemical reactions. So in this cascade reactions, the enzyme or the cofactor which is inactivated becomes activated, and this activated will further activate the inactivate ones. Okay, so one is getting inactivated, then it will get activated into some other form. This activated ones will further activate the inactivate ones. So this is called cascade reaction. Okay, now hemostasis means what? Stoppage of bleeding is called hemostasis. It can be written as H-E-M-O-S-T-A-S-I-S or H-A-E-M-O, hemo, anyway you can write it. So hemostasis is the stoppage of bleeding or cessation of bleeding. Takes place through a series of responses. These include, what are they? Vasospasm. Suddenly there is a cut, so your blood will start oozing. So lot of factors get activated and it will form a clot, and this clot will prevent the further loss of blood. Okay, so for that to happen, three stages are there. One is vasospasm, one is platelet plug formation, the third factor is the coagulation. So when all these three events happen, then only the blood will be coagulated or clotted. Okay, so follow the sequence to events initiated when platelets come in contact with an injured surface, whenever there is some injury anywhere. So what will happen? Your endothelium is damaged. When endothelium is damaged, your collagen gets exposed. So when collagen is exposed, platelets come and adhere there. So one platelet will activate the other platelet. They'll keep changing the shape, and lot of platelets come and join there until it forms a clot and further bleeding is prevented. So vasospasm, the first is the vasospasm. Vasospasm means vessel wall, spasm means what? Constriction. Vaso means vessel. So vessel wall will constrict for a short period. How is this vasospasm occurring? Yesterday I told you platelets are very rich in 5-HT. 5-HT is responsible for this vasoconstriction. So whenever vasoconstriction is there, it will stop the loss of blood. So vessel wall constricts for a shorter period, and the platelets adhere. So wherever the wall is injured, your blood vessel is injured, your platelets adhere to the injured wall, and these platelets will change their shape, and one platelet will activate the other platelet, releasing serotonin or 5-HT. 5-HT or serotonin are one and the same. Releasing, I told you, because the serotonin is the one which is responsible for vasoconstriction, 5-HT. So platelets release serotonin that will constrict the vessel. That is the first thing that is going to happen whenever there is injury to the blood vessel. So vasospasm, constriction of the blood vessel, that is because of liberation of serotonin from the platelets. Next will be platelet plug formation. This passing platelets will stick to the site and release chemicals, and when they release the chemicals, other platelet will come and get attached to it. One platelet will get attached to the other platelet. More platelets move, leading to platelet aggregation. So this is positive feedback. One platelet is joining the other one. So it is positive, not a negative one. Negative one means they go in opposite directions. Here one is exaggerating the other one. So it is more platelets move leading to platelet aggregation. It is a positive feedback. So platelets form a plug or a temporary seal within 6 minutes. Whenever there is an injury, these platelets form a plug and temporarily it will seal the vessel. So within 6 minutes, this is platelet plug formation. Vasospasm, platelet formation, platelet plug formation will give rise to temporary hemostatic plug. Temporary hemostatic plug. Then this temporary hemostatic plug should become a permanent hemostatic plug. So for that your coagulation factors are responsible. So now same thing. Now if you can see the diagram carefully, so your blood vessel, break in the vessel wall is there. Can you all see there is some break in the vessel wall? So when there is a break in the vessel wall, you are look at that collagen fiber, that whitish one, that collagen is exposed. When that collagen is exposed, so now wherever there is the breakage, the blood is escaping through the break. So the big red ones are the RBCs and the small ones are the platelets. So blood is escaping through the break. Platelets, now the blue ones, if you can see the third one, some blue ones are there, those are the platelets. Platelets adhere to each other. Look how the platelets are coming and they are getting attached to each other to end the broken vessel and to expose collagen also it is getting sealed, and all the vessel through and through that cut is also getting sealed up with these platelets. Then this platelet plug helps control the blood loss. Now wherever the damage has been done, it's all filled up by the platelets and it is helping to control the blood loss. This is platelet plug formation. Then the next one is the third one is the coagulation. What is coagulation? Coagulation is the formation of a temporary plug. Now it should become a permanent plug. That is coagulation. Coagulation can take place via two mechanisms. One is intrinsic mechanism, one is extrinsic mechanism. When I say intrinsic mechanism means all the chemicals, all the factors are present inside the blood. That is intrinsic mechanism. When I say extrinsic mechanism means they are present in the body fluids or in the plasma, or they are coming from the damaged tissue. So thromboplastin or tissue factors are released by damaged tissue cells. So this is extrinsic mechanism, thromboplastin. Whenever you initiate thromboplastin, it is extrinsic mechanism because this is not present inside the blood, it is present in the plasma or the damaged tissue cells. Thromboplastin. This thromboplastin activates through series of chemical reactions the inactive clotting factors already present in the blood. Inactive clotting factors are already present in the blood. Those inactive factors should become active factors now. So prothrombin activator, first step in final common pathway. So from one by one I will show you the steps and it will come up to the final common pathway. This final common pathway can be initiated by two processes. One is intrinsic, one is extrinsic. What is that final common pathway? Both of them, intrinsic or extrinsic, they will come to that final common pathway. This final common pathway can be initiated by two processes usually occurring side by side. Both of them get initiated at the same time. So these are the plasma clotting factors. Each one has got a name and its function. Factor 1 is called fibrinogen. It is converted to fibrin. The function of fibrinogen is to convert fibrinogen to fibrin. Second one is prothrombin. It is an enzyme. Number 3 is tissue thromboplastin. It is a cofactor. Tissue thromboplastin is a cofactor. Factor 4 is calcium. It is also a cofactor. Factor 5 is proaxillerin or labile factor. That is also a cofactor. Then there is no 6. After 5 it is factor 7. That is proconvertin. Some are enzymes, some are cofactors. And factor 8 is AHFA, that is anti-hemophilic factor A. It is a cofactor. And factor 9 is anti-hemophilic factor B or Christmas factor also it is called. Christmas is the name of a person. It is also an enzyme. Factor 10 is thrombokinase. It is also an enzyme. Factor 11 is anti-hemophilic factor C. It is also an enzyme. Factor 12 is Hageman factor, an enzyme. Factor 13 is fibrin stabilizing factor, that is also an enzyme. These are all the factors present inside the blood, and for the temporary plug to become permanent plug, all these factors are responsible. Each factor, that is why a plug will become permanent plug, means tight plug is formed. Temporary is not that tight, permanent is a tight plug is formed. Okay, now two mechanisms are there. If you concentrate, first I am going to talk about extrinsic clotting mechanism. Two mechanisms, I said extrinsic means some factors are present inside the blood, some are responsible from the tissue that is damaged. Whereas intrinsic mechanism is whenever they are present, all are present inside the blood only. So intrinsic clotting mechanism. So look at this, both are coming, this is the common factor. Prothrombin activator is the common factor. Both are coming and becoming prothrombin activator. Okay, so extrinsic clotting mechanism, whenever there is tissue damage, there is release of factor 3, that is tissue thromboplastin. Initially I told you tissue thromboplastin is the factor 3. So whenever tissue thromboplastin is there, means extrinsic mechanism is working. Tissue thromboplastin factor 3. So tissue thrombofactor in the presence of calcium will get converted into factor 7, and this factor 7, again these are all inactivated, again they should get activated. So factor 7 in the presence of calcium will become factor 10. So extrinsic mechanism means you should remember three numbers, 3, 7 and 10. 3 is converted into 7, 7 is converted into 10. Okay. Now coming to intrinsic clotting mechanism, whenever the blood comes in contact with the foreign surface, it activates factor 12. Factor 12, that is Hageman factor. Then the factor 12 is converted into factor 11. So again after factor 11 it is factor 9. There is no 10 here. First factor 9. So it is 12, 11, 9 and 10. That is 3, 7 and 10. Here it is 12, 11, 9 and 10. 10 is the common pathway. Final common pathway is factor 10. So factor 10. So this is also become factor 10. This is also factor 10. Both come together. Common factor is prothrombin activator. So factor 9 is converted to factor 10 in the presence of calcium, some platelets, phospholipids and factor 8. Factor 8, calcium, platelet, phospholipids. All this in the presence of that factor 9 is getting converted into factor 10. Okay. Now both of them in the presence of factor 5 is activated. So they are all present in an inactivate form. They should become activated. So one inactivate form will activate the other factor. So both of them will come together to form prothrombin activator. Initially they said that is the final common pathway, prothrombin activator. Here prothrombin activator, R is missing, is the final common pathway. So both of them 3, 7, 10 and this is 12, 11, 9 and 10. So both of them have come to this prothrombin activator. This prothrombin activator converts into prothrombin is factor 2. Prothrombin gets converted into thrombin, that activate. A in small letters is all activator. It is getting activated. If they write I it is inactivated form. So prothrombin factor 2 will getting converted to thrombin. This thrombin is getting converted to fibrinogen and this fibrinogen is getting converted to fibrin. Fibrin will stabilize the clot. In the presence of factor 13, it will stabilize and become a clot. Tight clot it becomes. So the insoluble, here in the box it is written, the insoluble fibrin threads increase in number and forms a meshwork that trap the blood cells and is much stronger than the temporary platelet plug. Whenever this fibrin threads are there, that means the clot has become stabilized. It is much stronger than your temporary plug. So all the factors, one is getting activated to the other one. See, all the factors are used up in the process. You can see all the numbers. 1 is there, 2 is there, 3 is there, 7, 5, 9, 10, 12, all are there. I think is calcium is factor 4. Okay, so all are there. So one, and it will form a permanent plug. So temporary plug and permanent plug, the difference is the insoluble fibrin threads increase in number and form a mesh. These are not soluble, that is why insoluble fibrin threads increase in number and form a mesh, and it will trap the blood cells and is much stronger than the platelet plug. Okay, next one. So if you understood clotting, here you should know why blood does not clot in circulation. Have you anybody got it out why blood does not clot in circulation? Endothelial factors, because the endothelium is very smooth. Our blood vessels have got 3 layers, we'll come to it later. Tunica intima, tunica media and adventitia. This outer layer is very smooth. So whenever it is very smooth, if it is rough, something can get attached to it. So endothelial lining is very smooth. And one more thing, over the endothelial lining there are negative forces. So if the blood vessel is like that, there are negative charges over the endothelial lining. So that will repel the clotting factors. That is why the blood does not clot in circulation. And also the velocity of circulation. Velocity, it flows at one particular velocity. If the velocity is too less, the blood will form a clot. So it will flow in that particular velocity. So because of this endothelial factors, velocity of circulation, and there are presence of natural anticoagulants in the blood like heparin. Heparin is present in our blood. It's a natural anticoagulant. That is why it will not let our blood clot normally. So you should know why blood does not clot in circulation, and little bit about the applied aspects. Thrombus. What is thrombus? These are very dangerous situations. Thrombus means sometimes a blood will clot inside the blood vessel. That is why you get myocardial infarction, MI, you get stroke. So inside the blood vessels, the blood is getting clotted, and that is called thrombus. And after a while, a pinch of this thrombus is broken, and it will circulate in any direction, and it will lodge in some other blood vessel. That pinching of the thrombus is called emboli. Emboli is smaller substances from the thrombus. It is broken and it lodges somewhere. That is why pulmonary embolism is very dangerous. If this emboli comes and blocks the pulmonary vessels, we will die. That is the reason the blood should not clot in circulation. If it is clotting, there is something wrong with the blood. Okay, so that is pathology. So you should know what is thrombus and what is emboli. Next one. So now clot has formed. It is inside the blood vessel. It has stopped bleeding. It has done its work. Then why should it remain like that forever? It should be. It should dissolve. Otherwise, it will form a thrombus. Again, there is emboli. So dissolution of the clot, dissolving. Dissolution of the clot means dissolving of the clot. Dissolution of the clot is very essential, because otherwise it might lead to thrombus and embolism. So dissolution also should happen. How will the dissolution of the clot happen? So dissolution and clotting both are happening at the same time. Whenever there is injury, both are occurring at the same time. But for the dissolution of the clot, it will take longer time than the clotting mechanism. Okay, so dissolution of the clot is brought about by an enzyme, fibrinolysin. Fibrinolysin. The other name for fibrinolysin is called plasmin. It is present in the plasma. This enzyme is present in the plasma. Fibrinolysin is also called plasmin. Does it exist like that? No. It is present in plasma as precursor, pre-fibrinolysin. It is present in the plasma not as fibrinolysin. It is present as pre-fibrinolysin. Whenever there is injury, this pre-fibrinolysin gets converted to fibrinolysin. So it is present in plasma as precursor, fibrinolysin. It is also called as plasminogen. The other name for pre-fibrinolysin is plasminogen. Fibrinolysin is plasmin. So both clotting and dissolution of the clot are occurring at the same time whenever there is injury. But dissolution of the clot takes much longer. By then the clot has formed, it has stabilized, it has stopped the bleeding, it has done its job. Now the clot has to dissolve. Dissolving the clot is later. That is why dissolution of the clot takes longer time. That is, the dissolution of the clot is also very essential. We do not want the clots in our body. Once the work is done, it should get dissolved. That is getting dissolved by pre-fibrinolysin. This is about the dissolution of the clot. Now, so some common bleeding disorders. You must have heard about hemophilia. It occurs due to the deficiency of factor 8. It is an X-linked recessive bleeding disorder. Who are the sufferers and who are the carriers? Females are the carriers and the males are the sufferers. Because why do females do not suffer from this? Because we have got 2 X chromosomes. If one is abnormal, at least the other one is normal. So we have got 2 X chromosomes. So females are the carriers and the males are the sufferers. So abnormality is located on the X chromosome. So women are the carriers. Okay. So how do you treat? Hemophilia means whenever there is some injury to the body, the blood keeps on oozing out. It will bleed for sometimes from days to weeks. Though some clots are formed, but still it is bleeding because it is a disorder, X-linked recessive disorder. So it will bleed into the joints. It will bleed everywhere. So how should you treat that? Patient is treated with fresh blood transfusion. Don't use the blood which is stored in the blood banks, because on storage factor 8 is lost. If you store the blood for long time and you give the blood, there is no factor 8, because hemophilia is factor 8 disease. We need to give factor 8. So give the fresh blood, not the stored blood. Patient is treated with fresh blood transfusion. The better alternative is, if you do not have the fresh, give direct factor 8 concentrate. These concentrates are available in the market. They are expensive. They are available. Just give them factor 8 concentrate. Okay. In hemophilia, your coagulation time is increased. A word about coagulation time. What is coagulation time? Coagulation time is from the start, whenever you are taking a prick, from the start of the bleeding to the formation of a clot, that is permanent clot. So it is coagulation time, from the start of the bleeding to the formation of a permanent plug, that is the coagulation time. So for this in hemophilia, your coagulation time is increased because factor 8 is a coagulation factor. So there is some problem with this, means your coagulation time is increased. Purpura. Purpura is a clinical condition in which capillary abnormality results in bleeding. So capillaries are not normal. Capillary abnormalities, so they break up very easily. So this is characterized by spontaneous hemorrhages beneath the skin, mucous membrane and in internal organs. In this disease, coagulation time is normal, but the bleeding time is increased. Purpura is bleeding time is increased. So bleeding time, what is bleeding time? Is from the time of prick, from the oozing of the blood to the formation of the temporary plug, till the bleeding is stopped. From the onset of the bleeding to the stoppage of the bleeding is the bleeding time. So from the onset of the bleeding to formation of clot is the clotting time. So which should be, duration of which should be more? Clotting time. Obviously clotting time should be more. Bleeding time is between 2 to 5 minutes, whereas clotting time is between 3 to 8 minutes, because it has to form a clot. All those clotting factors 1 to 13, what I have told you, should activate one by one. So it will take longer time than the bleeding time. So bleeding time is only up to the formation of the temporary hemostatic plug, whereas clotting time is till the formation of the permanent hemostatic plug. That is why your clotting time is always much more than the bleeding time. If your bleeding time is 2 to 5 minutes, clotting time is between 3 to 8 minutes. So when the platelet count is reduced, it is called thrombocytopenic purpura. Purpura is abnormal, capillary abnormalities results in bleeding. So platelet count is reduced, is called thrombocytopenic purpura. So today what we have seen? We have seen what coagulation is, what are the, how the series of events unfold for the blood from the liquid form to form a clot. So we have seen the clotting factors. The main three events are vasospasm, temporary hemostatic plug, and the temporary should get converted into permanent hemostatic plug. And we have seen all the clotting factors. Then we have also seen the intrinsic mechanism and the extrinsic mechanism, and what is the common final pathway for both, and from there how the plug is forming, permanent plug. Then we have also seen what is hemophilia, what is purpura, and we have also how the clot is getting dissolved. So clot is getting dissolved simultaneously. Coagulation and dissolution of the clot are occurring simultaneously. But this is a slow process. That is why till it has formed a clot, then this will try to break the clot. So bleeding time is 2 to 5 minutes. Clotting time is 3 to 8 minutes. So bleeding time is from the onset of the bleeding to the stoppage of the bleeding is bleeding time. From the onset of the bleeding to formation of a plug is the clotting time. Yeah, I hope it's clear.